Hey Dr. K, it's Jasmine. I'll be telling the story of Rumpelstiltskin from the Grimm's Brother. Here we go. Once upon a time, there was a miller who had a beautiful daughter. He happened to meet the king at the bar and told the king that he had a daughter who could spin straw into gold. And the king replied, "Well, that's a skill I really like. Have her come to my castle and I will put her to the test." So the next day, the miller's daughter came to the castle where the king showed her a room filled with straw, and he said, "If you value your life, you will spin all the straw into gold." And then he locked the door and left. The poor miller's daughter did not know what to do. She did not know how to spin straw into gold, and as the night progressed, she became more afraid and more frightened and began to cry. Then suddenly, the door opened and a little man appeared, and he said, "Good evening, Mistress Miller. Why are you crying so?" She said, "Oh, I have to spin all the straw into gold and I don't know how." The little man said, "Well, what will you give me if I spin the straw into gold for you?" And she said, "I'll give you my necklace." And so the little man sat down at the spinning wheel and pulled the spinning wheel 3 times, whir, 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 and the spool was filled with gold. And he pulled another spool and 3 times more pulled, whir, 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 and the spool was full. And so it went on till morning, until all the straw was spun into gold. At sunrise, when the king came, he was so surprised and so happy. However, his heart became even greedier for gold, and so he showed the miller's daughter another room even larger than before and told her to spin the straw into gold if she valued your life. And then he locked the door and left. Then the little man appeared and said, "What will you give me if I spin the straw into gold for you?" And she replied, "I will give you my little ring from my finger." And so it began again. The little man spun all the straw into gold until morning. When the king came in at sunrise, he was even happier than before, and he thought to himself, "I will make this girl my queen. She'll probably be the richest wife I'll ever find, even if she is a miller's daughter." And so he showed the miller's daughter to another room, even larger than the before, and said, "If you spin all the straw into gold, I will make you the queen of my kingdom." And then he left. And so the little man appeared for the 3rd time and said, "What will you give me if I spin the straw into gold for you?" And the miller's daughter said, "I have nothing left to give." And the little man said, "Well, when you become queen, give me your firstborn child." Well, the miller's daughter thought to herself, "I don't know what's going to happen in the future." So she agreed. And so it began again, where the little man spun all the straw into gold, and the miller's daughter became queen of the kingdom, and she thought nothing of him until a year later, when she bore a beautiful child. Then the little man appeared and said, "Give me what you owe me." But the poor queen was so afraid and so frightened she began to cry, and so the little man took pity on her and said, "If you can guess my name in 3 days' time, you can keep your child." And then he left. The next day, the queen thought of all the names she knew. She wrote them down, and when the little man came, she asked him, "Is your name Adam? Is your name Bob? Is your name Christopher? Is your name Greg? Is your name Michael? Oliver? Pumpkin?" And he said, "No, no, no, that is not my name." And then he left. The next day, the queen had all her writers go into the country and get all the most unusual names to guess for this little man. And so when he came back, the queen guessed, "Is your name Lila Dog, Yuffie Cat, Bocce Ball, Nala, Tracy, Lulu?" And he said, "No, no, no, that is not my name." So the queen was at her wit's end by the 3rd day, and so she was so happy when a writer came back and said, "Your Majesty, when I was riding around the castle where the fox says goodnight to the rabbit, he heard and saw a little man dance around a fire and said, 'Today I bake, tomorrow I brew, the next day I grab the queen's child, for she will never know that my name is Rumpelstiltskin.'" So the queen was so happy to find out his real name. The next day, when the little man came, she said, "Is your name Beelzebub? Is your name Samuel?" And he said, "No, no, that is not my name." And then she said, "Is your name Rumpelstiltskin?" And the little man said, "The devil told you that. The devil told you that." And he stomped his foot 3 times so hard into the ground that he sunk into the earth. And then he grabbed his left foot and pulled himself apart. The end.